There was once a man who believed that authenticity was the highest virtue. He wore his true self like a banner, never hiding his opinions, his emotions, his intentions. He was proud of his consistency, his transparency, his unwillingness to play roles. He was also broke, alone, and constantly defeated. People knew exactly who he was, and because they knew exactly how to block him, mock him, and use him. He was authentic, and authenticity had made him a predictable target. He had once displayed his role openly. The nice guy, the hard worker, the loyal friend. These roles became prisons. He learned to wear his roles like masks, changing them as the situation demanded. No one knew which version of him was real, and that uncertainty was his power. The unreadable role is the role that cannot be anticipated, and the man who plays multiple parts is the man who is never typecast. The man had believed that his identity was fixed, that he was one thing and one thing only. He learned that the most successful people are chameleons. They adapt to their audience, their environment, their objective. They do not have one self, they have many selves, each deployed strategically. The unfixed self is the self that cannot be pinned down, and the man who can be anyone is the man who can never be trapped by expectations. He had once performed his roles badly, overacting, trying too hard, signaling his intentions. He learned that the best performances are invisible. He became subtle. He shifted his posture, his tone, his word choice, but never so much that anyone noticed the shift. His changes were felt, not seen. The unforced performance is the performance that is never detected, and the man who changes seamlessly is the man who is never accused of being fake. He had once felt guilty for not being authentic, for changing who he was to suit the situation. He learned that guilt is a weapon used by those who benefit from your predictability. He stopped feeling guilty. He adapted freely, without apology. The unfelt guilt for adaptation is the guilt that cannot stop him. And the man who changes without remorse is the man who evolves without resistance. He had once told people his strategies, his tactics, his plans. He learned that sharing your script gives others the chance to write counter-scripts. He stopped explaining his role shifts. He simply shifted, and others adjusted without understanding why. The unshared script is the script that cannot be countered, and the man who keeps his method secret is the man whose methods always work. The man who learned to play strategic roles began to thrive. In meetings, he became the decisive leader. With friends, he became the warm confidant. With rivals, he became the unreadable wall. He was not lying, he was selecting. He chose the role that served his purpose in each moment, and he played it so well that even he forgot he was playing. He learned that the highest form of authenticity is not consistency. It is the ability to be whatever the moment requires. He had once believed that he would eventually find his true self and stop changing. He learned that the true self is a myth. He is always becoming, always adapting, always shifting. The unfinished transformation is the transformation that never ends. And the man who embraces constant change is the man who is always relevant. He had once performed empathy, nodding, smiling, saying the right words. He learned that performed empathy is transparent. He began to genuinely try to understand others, not because he cared, but because understanding was useful. His empathy became strategic, and because it was strategic, it was effective. The unforced empathy is the empathy that is felt, not faked. And the man who understands others is the man who can predict their moves. He had once shifted roles abruptly, confusing those around him. He learned that transitions must be smooth, almost invisible. He began to layer his roles, blending them so that no one could tell where one ended and another began. The unreadable transition is the transition that is never noticed, and the man who slides between roles is the man who is never caught in a contradiction. He had once expressed his doubts openly, believing that honesty was disarming. He learned that doubt expressed is weakness advertised. He kept his doubts private. In public, he projected certainty, even when he felt none. People followed his certainty, and their following made his projects succeed. The unshared doubt is the doubt that cannot be exploited, and the man who projects confidence is the man who creates confidence in others. He had once believed that he would eventually find a role that fit permanently. He learned that no role fits forever. He constantly updated his roles, discarded those that no longer served, invented new ones for new contexts. The unfinished role is the role that is always being revised, and the man who treats his persona as a living document is the man who never outgrows his usefulness. He had once felt pressure to be the same person every day, in every situation. He learned that consistency is overrated. He allowed himself to be inconsistent. Warm one day, cold the next. Serious in the morning, playful in the evening. His inconsistency made him unpredictable, and unpredictability is power. The unfelt pressure to be consistent is the pressure that cannot bind him, and the man who embraces inconsistency is the man who cannot be mapped. The man who mastered strategic roles did not become a liar or a fraud. He became a strategist. He understood that every interaction is a stage, and those who refuse to act are not authentic. They are merely bad actors. He chose his roles deliberately, played them skillfully, and switched them seamlessly. He was not fake. He was fluid, and fluidity is the ultimate form of power. Beneath all his roles, he maintained a core, not of fixed identity, but of values. Loyalty to his mission, protection of his family, growth of his power. This core was invisible, unreadable, unassailable. Others saw only the masks. They never saw the engine. The unreadable core is the core that cannot be targeted. And the man who hides his true values behind shifting personas is the man whose values are never compromised. He had once rehearsed his roles in public, signaling his intentions. He learned to rehearse in private, in silence, in the mirror. His preparation was invisible, and his execution appeared effortless. The unshared rehearsal is the rehearsal that no one sees, and the man who prepares in secret is the man whose performances look like magic. He had once stayed in roles too long, even when they no longer served him. He learned that the ability to abandon a role is as important as the ability to adopt one. He withdrew from roles gracefully, without explanation, without apology. The unforced withdrawal from a role is the withdrawal that leaves no residue. And the man who can shed a persona as easily as a coat is the man who is never trapped by his own performance. He looked back at his journey from the rigid, authentic to the fluid strategist. He knew he was not finished. New situations would arise. New roles would be needed. New masks would have to be crafted. He accepted this. The unfinished adaptation is the adaptation that never ends. And the man who is always ready to change is the man who is always ready to win. The man in our story is not a deceiver. He is a shapeshifter. He learned that authenticity is not about being the same person in every room. It is about being the right person for every room. He learned to wear masks without being trapped by them, to shift roles without losing himself, to perform without performing. Now, you have the blueprint. Stop clinging to a single identity. Become fluid. Become unreadable. Become whoever you need to be to get wherever you want to go. Be the prince. Subscribe to The Dark Scholar. This channel is your weekly training in strategic adaptation. Hit subscribe now and learn to become whoever you need to be. Today, in one interaction, consciously adopt a role that is not your default. If you were usually the quiet one, speak up. If you were usually the leader, listen. Notice how the dynamic shifts. Comment below. I played a new role today. Let us build a community of shapeshifters who control every room they enter. The man who had learned to wear masks had become a chameleon. He moved through boardrooms, bedrooms, and battlefields, shifting personas as easily as changing clothes. Yet, he noticed a new danger. He was becoming so good at playing roles that he sometimes forgot which one was real. He would catch himself performing for an audience of one, himself. The masks were beginning to stick. He realized that the greatest danger of strategic role is not being seen through. It is losing the ability to take the mask off. He had once believed that he could be nothing but masks. He learned that a ship without an anchor drifts. He found his anchor, not a fixed identity, but a set of core values that remained constant across all roles. His loyalty to his family, his commitment to his mission, his refusal to harm the innocent. These values were his anchor, invisible to others, but absolute for him. The unmasked anchor is the anchor that holds when all masks are removed, and the man who knows what he will not do is the man who can do anything else. He had once performed his role shifts publicly, signaling his changes to anyone watching. He learned to create private rituals, a breath, a phrase, a moment of stillness that marked his transitions. No one saw these rituals, but they were the hinges on which his persona turned. The unshared ritual is the ritual that no one witnesses, and the man who changes in secret is the man whose changes seem effortless. He had once worn his masks flatly, giving each role equal weight. He learned that some masks are more important than others, and that the hierarchy must be invisible. He prioritized his roles: the protector at home, the strategist at work, the ghost in public. No one knew which mask was primary, and their uncertainty was his advantage. The unreadable hierarchy of masks is the hierarchy that cannot be gamed, and the man who keeps his priorities hidden is the man whose priorities are never attacked. He had once been exhausted by the effort of maintaining multiple roles. He learned that exhaustion comes from resistance, not from performance. He stopped resisting the shift. He accepted that he was different in different contexts, and the acceptance made the shifts effortless. The unfelt fatigue of performance is the fatigue that comes from fighting who you are, and the man who embraces his multiplicity is the man who never tires of being himself, in any form. He had once tried to force his different roles to align, to be the same person in every situation. He learned that forcing alignment creates friction. He let his roles be contradictory. He was kind at home, ruthless at work, warm with friends, cold with rivals. The contradictions were not flaws, they were features. The unforced alignment is the alignment that is never forced. And the man who embraces contradiction is the man who cannot be reduced to a single story. He had once prepared only for entries: how to enter a room, how to establish a role. He learned that exits are equally important. He rehearsed his exits in private: how to leave a conversation without burning bridges, how to abandon a role without explanation, how to disappear without drama. The unshared rehearsal for exits is the rehearsal that ensures he never overstays his welcome. And the man who knows how to leave is the man who is always invited back.
He had once looked in mirrors to check his performance, to see if his mask was convincing. He learned that the mirror lies. It shows only the mask, not the wearer. He stopped checking his reflection. He trusted his internal calibration. His confidence became self-referential, unshakable. The unreadable reflection is the reflection that is never consulted. And the man who does not need to see himself is the man who cannot be deceived by what he sees. He had once believed that he would eventually find his permanent role, the one true self that fit forever. He learned that casting is never finished. New situations would require new roles, new masks, new performances. He accepted this. The unfinished casting is the casting that never ends. And the man who is always open to a new role is the man who is never typecast. The man who had deepened his mastery of strategic roles was no longer afraid of being seen as fake. He knew that everyone wears masks. The only difference is awareness. The unthinking wear one mask their whole lives, trapped by their own consistency. He wore many, and he wore them freely. He was not a fraud. He had once chased authenticity, believing that the true self was something to be found. He learned that authenticity is not found, it is created. He became authentic to his purpose, not to a fixed identity. His authenticity was in his adaptability, his willingness to become whatever the moment demanded. The unforced authenticity is the authenticity that is not tied to a single self. And the man who is authentically adaptive is the man who is never inauthentic.
He had once auditioned for roles publicly, signaling his interest, his availability, his desire. He learned that public auditions invite competition and sabotage. He auditioned in silence, preparing in private, then appearing as if by magic when the role was ready. The unshared audition is the audition that no one sees. And the man who prepares in darkness is the man whose performances seem like destiny. He had once feared being seen through, exposed as a performer. He learned that the fear itself is more damaging than exposure. He stopped fearing. He accepted that some people would see through his masks, and that those people were either allies or irrelevant. The unfelt fear of being seen is the fear that cannot paralyze. And the man who is not afraid to be seen is the man whose masks are so good that they become reality. He had once relied on memory to recall his roles in different contexts. He learned to keep an archive, not written, but mental, of every role he had ever played, every context he had ever navigated. He revisited this archive before entering new situations, adapting past performances to present needs. The unfinished archive of roles is the archive that grows with every encounter. And the man who learns from every role is the man who never repeats a mistake. He had once treated all audiences the same, believing that consistency was key. He learned that different audiences require different performances. He prioritized. His family saw his true anchor. His partners saw his strategic mind. His rivals saw his unreadable mask. And the public saw nothing at all. The unreadable hierarchy of audiences is the hierarchy that ensures he is never overexposed. And the man who calibrates his performance to each audience is the man who never performs for the wrong crowd. The man who had mastered the deeper layers of strategic role was now a legend in his own circle. People spoke of his ability to read a room, to become whatever was needed, to disappear and reappear at will. They did not know that he had no fixed self, only a toolkit of masks, a set of values, and a willingness to adapt. He was not a chameleon because he was hiding. He was a chameleon because he was free.
He had once resented his masks, seeing them as barriers between himself and the world. He learned to be grateful for them. Each mask had protected him, advanced him, allowed him to survive. He thanked his masks before discarding them, acknowledging their service. The unspoken gratitude to the mask is the gratitude that is felt but never performed. And the man who honors his masks is the man who never treats his tools as enemies.
He looked back at his journey from the rigid authentic to the fluid strategist. He knew he was not finished. New situations would arise, new roles would be needed, new masks would have to be crafted. He accepted this. The unfinished role is the role that is always being revised, and the man who treats his persona as a living document is the man who never outgrows his usefulness.
The man in our story is not a deceiver. He is a shapeshifter. He learned that identity is not a possession. It is a performance. He learned to wear masks without being trapped by them, to shift roles without losing himself, to perform without performing. He learned that the highest form of authenticity is the ability